For decades, the Honourable Margaret Norrie McCain has been a driving force for change, championing the power of early education to shape brighter futures. In Giving for Change, Margaret shares the deeply personal and profoundly impactful story of her philanthropic journey. Her introduction to early childhood education began with a chance meeting with Dr. Fraser Mustard.
The first time I met Fraser, I didn't know what the heck he was talking about. He talked about social gradients, and the only thing I knew about social gradients is that they were like how steep was a ski hill I was going to go down. So I didn't know a thing about what he was talking about. But typically, Fraser let me leave only with a stack of research material. And I read and read and read because I don't like being considered dumb. So I read, and out of the reading, things began to take shape. And everything proceeded from there, and the rest is history.
Understanding how early childhood experiences can impact the developing brain with lifelong consequences resonated with Margaret's training in social work and her own experiences as an activist against family violence. Fraser respected Margaret as someone who got it, and moreover could talk about early childhood development in a way practitioners and parents could understand. He asked her to co-chair a study he had been asked to undertake by then Premier of Ontario, Mike Harris. The result was the Early Years Study, released in 1999, subtitled Reversing the Real Brain Drain. It hit a nerve, responding to the angst about Canada's top talent leaving for bigger opportunities and paychecks in the United States. The authors asked, what costs more, the exit of a handful of elites or the lost potential of generations of young minds? That first early years study punched above its weight. It was recommended that universities develop a relationship with practitioners to link research to best practices and ultimately influence policy. The call resonated with the Atkinson Foundation, which established the Atkinson Centre at the University of Toronto, and the creation of an enduring partnership with the School of Early Childhood at George Brown College. Other colleges and university partnerships have since followed. The Early Years Study advocated for early human development to become mandatory learning in every post-secondary discipline. The Science of Early Child Development at Red River College produces a constantly updated curriculum tool that is employed across different fields of study and worldwide. The report knew the importance of tracking outcomes in early childhood. The Offord Centre created the Early Development Instrument. This critical tool tracks the impact of public policies and exposes inequities between groups and regions, supporting policymaking across Canada and internationally. That first early years study did more than spin off reports and evaluation tools. It influenced major policy decisions. 2 years after its release, the federal finance minister phoned Margaret to say he was introducing a children's budget. Budget 2001 expanded parental leave, increased family payments and health care for mothers and babies, and targeted funding for childcare and family support. The wording from the announcement expanding parental leave from 6 to 12 months was repeated directly from the Early Years Study. 20 years later, on the eve of Budget 2021, Margaret received another call, this time from the Minister of Families. He told her to listen for her name in the Finance Minister's upcoming address to Parliament. She was mentioned, along with a multi-billion-dollar investment in early learning and childcare. Getting to the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Plan has been a long journey, involving many. A pivotal moment came just before the study's release. Anticipating its recommendations, the Atkinson Foundation gathered key influencers in its boardroom to brainstorm how to transform the study's evidence into action. That meeting set the stage for Toronto First Duty, a partnership between the Foundation, the City of Toronto, the Toronto District School Board, and major childcare providers. First Duty set out to demonstrate the possible. Its sites became places where practitioners, academics, and policymakers could witness the benefits of breaking down silos for the benefits of children and families. Toronto First Duty's integrated teaching team, play-based curriculum, and seamless day model informed full-day kindergarten now used by 250,000 4- and 5-year-olds in Ontario. It went on to do so much more. First Duty underwent an extensive evaluation, creating a compelling story of how scientific evidence can be turned into community action and ultimately public policy. This, along with the best available science in early childhood development, became the mandate for the Margaret and Wallace McCain Family Foundation. The foundation shared First Duty's findings with its Atlantic partners, who used its lessons to develop their own models of integrated children's service delivery. These early models went on to become Universal Pre-Primary in Nova Scotia, 4-year-old preschool in Prince Edward Island, full-day kindergarten and 4-year-old preschool in Newfoundland and Labrador, and designated early learning centers in New Brunswick. First Duty also reached the far north, resulting in Universal Junior Kindergarten in the Northwest Territories, and helped the Stony Point First Nations in becoming the first Indigenous community in Ontario to offer full-day learning. The foundation is small, but knew it was not alone. In 2009, it joined forces to create the Early Childhood Development Funders Working Group, a cross-Canada network of very diverse foundations with a deeply shared commitment to children and a common goal: quality, publicly funded early childhood education for every child. To justify the call for public investment, the Funders Group worked to put the economic story of the early years on the map. It collaborated with leading Quebec economists to demonstrate the financial benefits of the province's low-cost childcare services. A breakthrough study by Dr. Pierre Fortin, and now supported by other economists, shows how public investment more than pays for itself through increased economic activity, expanded maternal labor force participation, reduced spending on welfare services, and increased tax revenue. Early education and care could no longer be dismissed as an expensive perk. It was an economic powerhouse. Dr. Fortin's work prompted other high-profile studies, including those released by the Toronto-Dominion Bank, the Conference Board of Canada, and Deloitte. The McCain Foundation commissioned leading economists to quantify the benefits of public investment in early childhood. The Funders Working Group coalesced around the Early Years Study 3 and the introduction of the Early Childhood Education Report. Released every 3 years, the report monitors EC policy across Canada's 13 jurisdictions. It serves as a guide to policymakers, identifies gaps that need attention, provides accountability to the public for investments, and supports advocates in engaging for effective change. The Foundation's research plan follows 4 lines of evidence. The early years studies were constantly updated, providing the latest scientific information. The demonstration sites show what is possible. The Early Childhood Education Report monitors progress, and the economic studies provide the metrics necessary for governments, institutions, and advocates to drive real, measurable change. Communication is the essential 5th arm to champion the story of early childhood. The Foundation invests in knowledge mobilization, supporting events like the Summer Institute, but also building Atlantic connections, headed by researchers at Mount St. Vincent University. The Encyclopedia on Early Childhood Development, supported by a fantastic team at the University Laval and University of Montreal, is designed to take the latest scientific knowledge on early childhood to parents, service providers, and policymakers. Another route to taking the science outside academia is the Conversation Canada, an online platform that pairs researchers with experienced journalists to translate research into accessible, engaging articles. Through the Conversation, Canadian researchers engage with over 1 million readers each week, demonstrating the powerful reach of well-communicated science. Margaret always notes that philanthropy is a privilege and a responsibility. Foundations can experiment, test new approaches on a smaller scale, and demonstrate their effectiveness before scaling up. It's not just about funding projects, it's about creating a bridge between the unknown and the possible, providing governments with a roadmap informed by real-world experience. Our work, she says, is never about replacing government. Instead, it's about strengthening it. However, humility is essential, sustainable change doesn't come from charity. It requires public systems to take ownership and expand ideas. Canada now has the funding to begin building a truly great early childhood system. We can have both great early learning for children and great support for parents, but only if we all follow the evidence. Giving for Change is one story of how this can be done.